I figured I'd start recording now. We are going to record this so that people who didn't attend can watch it. I know that most of us are familiar with each other, but I know that some of us aren't. So I'm going to go very, very briefly. I'm going to ask you all to just give your name, if you have preferred pronouns, and kind of where you're from so people can introduce you. And I'm just going to go in order of like where I can see you. So Don, necessary if you want to go first.
Hi, I'm Don. He, him pronouns. I'm here in Morton. What's your audio, Anthony?
Sorry. Noah, can you go next?
Yeah, I'm Noah. He, him pronouns, and I'm from Pekin, Illinois.
Right on. Emily, can you go next?
Hi, yes, I'm Emily, she, her pronouns, and I am from Peoria.
Right on. Kyle, can you go next?
Yeah, I'm Kyle. He, him pronouns, and I'm from around East Peoria.
Right on. Bailey, can you go next?
Sure thing. I'm Bailey Wilkinson, he, him pronouns, from Bloomington, Illinois.
Right on. Doug, can you go next?
Yes, I am Doug Johnson, he, him, also Peoria.
Right on. Blake, can you go next?
Yep, my name is Blake Baxter, he, him pronouns. I'm originally from Eureka, and I live in Peoria now.
Right on. Eric, can you go next? Eric, you're muted.
Yeah, no.
Sorry. Okay. Right on. Lynn, can you go next?
Hi, Lynn Fingerhut. She, her. I'm from St. Louis and now live in Peoria.
Right on. Robert, can you go next? All right.
Hey,
there we go.
Sorry, I had to unmute on the phone. I'm Robert Garcia. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm in Bloomington.
Thank you for coming. Nakota, can you go next?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm Nakota, she, her pronouns. I live in Groveland.
Right on. Justin, can you go next?
Hey, everybody. Justin Krakowieski, Peoria, Illinois, born and raised, represent for Woodruff High School.
Hell yeah. RIP Warriors. All right. So we're going to go ahead and just get started. Did everyone have a chance to read the essay? It's not very long. If you didn't, it's not going to probably impede you very much in the discussion of these topics. But just in case we wanted to do, I wanted to make sure there was a little presentation discussing kind of what the gist of the essay was. And this one was, so you think capitalism is free? So at least capitalism is free and democratic, right? And it's by a guy named Eric Olin Wright. He's a professor of sociology in Wisconsin. He's a pretty insightful writer about these kinds of things. So here's the presentation. Can everybody see this? If someone can't see it, unmute and say I can't see it. Okie dokie. Okay. So at least capitalism is free and democratic, right? And this is a presentation by me. So, we live in a society that calls itself the free world. We kind of pride ourselves on that, in fact, and we do a very good job of critiquing other countries when they fail to live up to what we deem as the ideals of freedom. But just how free are we under a capitalist economic system that kind of exploits us in various ways? So the first thing that we need to talk about is that capitalism is actually better than the things that preceded it, which it's hard to believe sometimes, but it's better than feudalism. It did provide more individual freedom than systems of economics that preceded it. As it spread, it brought new freedoms to many people. However, and this is a giant however, capitalism can only provide limited forms of freedom and self-determination for most people, and it has significant democratic deficits. And what do you mean it's flawed? My whole life I've been told that we live in the free world in this free system. Well, and this has nothing to do with like the ability to vote, but self-determination, otherwise defined as the ability of people to determine the conditions of their own lives, is extremely limited under capitalism, if it's available at all. In a modern society where so much of what affects people is beyond our control, we should have a voice in what affects our lives. And modern capitalism barely provides people a say in how their lives are affected in the political sphere, and provides the working class with almost no say in the decisions that affect them in the workplace. So there's a lot of things that are promised by capitalism in terms of freedom. You can self-actualize, you can do whatever you want, you can be whatever you want to be. To fully access those freedoms under our current economic system, to be fully self-actualized, one has to have great wealth. It's the only way. That's why some people are allowed to indulge in the dreams of going to the moon or going into space with their own money, while people that made that possible economically have to work 2 and 3 jobs and pee in bottles at work just to survive. And that brings us to our first point about why capitalism is really flawed, and it's just the very choice of working or starving. If I put a gun to your head in an alleyway and I said, give me your wallet or I will shoot you, none of us would probably say that that was a free choice made by someone that was not under duress. Yet every day, the vast majority of us go to work under that same scenario of work or starve. And that's one of the things that we need to differentiate is what are called positive freedoms and negative freedoms. And so there are some people that believe that positive freedoms, the freedom to be left alone, the freedom to not have someone bother you, the freedom to make a choice, are more important than what are called negative freedoms, which is I have a freedom, I should be free from being starving. I should be free from houselessness. I should be free from economic insecurity. And this is a perfect example of one of those situations where the positive freedom of making a choice is negated by the fact that A, it's coerced, and B, it's done in a sense that people are choosing between living in poverty or starving and death and deprivation, or working at a job where they don't set the conditions of the labor. So again, freedom to work or starve is not true freedom. And the need to have labor to support oneself means that various opportunities open to capitalists are not open to the working class. We have to move beyond a concept of freedom that simply presents people with impossible choices and then claims that the right to choose poverty, sickness, and death is freedom. It's not a free, as the little comic says, it's a threat. It's a way that we are made to keep in line. This is not free. This is not democratic in any sense of the word. Another question is who decides what goes on? In modern capitalism, economic decisions affecting large numbers of people are decided on by the capitalist class. If you are from the local area of Peoria, although if you're not, it's the same across the Midwest. Even though hundreds of thousands of auto workers had helped create the wealth of Caterpillar, none of them had a say in the decisions that drastically affected their lives. So in the 80s and the 90s, when Caterpillar, posting very healthy profits, elected to move its production out of central Illinois to other places, it devastated the city of Peoria, devastated us economically. We had no say in that decision, the workers of Caterpillar or the people in the community. That is the opposite of democracy. That is a dictatorship. And it's a dictatorship based on the fact that you own shares in something, not based on the fact that you helped build it. Again, the principle that that which affects all should be decided by all is a significant deficit in capitalism. If you've ever worked in any kind of like business where you produce things for other people, you'll know that the decisions made to what to make, how to make it, are often better answered by the workers than the managers, but the workers have no say in that. And then when it comes to global capitalism, workers across the world and across the country are pitted against each other, forced to try to take lower wages, work more hours, and things like that by people who should not be making those decisions. And just working in general, the way that the system is set up, working 9 to 5 is a way to get hosed. If anyone was following the Frito-Lay strike that was going on in Topeka, Kansas, one of the contentions the union had was that they were working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And think about how that just not only affects your life in terms of your working, but affects every other aspect of your life. Under capitalism, there is no more complete dictatorship than the business. They get to tell you when to show up, when you can leave, oftentimes what you can do in your downtime if you work for a job where they do drug testing or they have other kinds of like clauses like that. And while you're there, you're under their complete control. Again, like I said, these Frito-Lay workers were working 7 days a week, at least 12 hours a day, and they had no choice in the matter. Because again, the choice that they presented was do this or starve. It's not a choice. So how free really is the Amazon worker that has to pee in a plastic bottle on the shift? How free really is a Frito-Lay's employee that's told that they have to work 84 hours a week or they'll be fired? How free is someone who has to put up with sexual harassment on the job, racial discrimination on the job, all the various forms of other discriminations that affect people in addition to this larger thing we're talking about? How free are those people when they operate in a system where they have no say over what they're allowed to do or when they're allowed to do it, even both at home and at work? This is the kind of system that is, by its very definition, cannot be free and democratic. And another way that this system is flawed is that the government serves the interests of the capitalists. Since we cede control over investment to private entities, since the flow of dollars is determined by private people, even well-intentioned governments are at the mercy of the capitalist system. There's, in a way that we can really view this and see this and know this is true, think of all the things from healthcare, housing, childcare, environment protections that are both popular with society at large and would improve the conditions and freedom of the working class, but they're denied due to the objections of capital. We have a system that tells us because we can vote once a year, once every 4 years, that we have a democracy, when in fact the very choice of the people that we get to select, the laws that get made by those people, the way those laws are implemented after they're passed is almost entirely determined by the interests of a small, well-moneyed group of elite that we don't ever get to vote for, either in or out of office, because they don't hold office. We are not free in a system that serves the interests of the few over the many. We can't fix this, we have to change it. The history of capitalism and working class agitation shows that in periods of crisis and mass organizing, workers can extract meaningful concessions from capitalists. The 1930s is a really good example, even the 1960s and 70s to a certain degree. But history also shows that as long as the issues mentioned before remain in place, as long as those inherent democratic deficits in our economic system remain in place, then it's only a matter of time before the forces of capital retrench and they claw back those gains, as we've seen pretty much our entire life. The goal must be to change this system because it simply cannot be reformed. And this is just a statistic that I want you to think about, and maybe you've even experienced it, I hope not. But according to recent studies, this is the number of Americans who live in what we would call economic insecurity. It's 42% of all Americans. In addition to that, there's tens of millions of more, so this would put this in the roughly 65 to 70%. 70% of all Americans would be economically insecure with the loss of 2 paychecks. How free are people who have to make decisions with that gun pointed at their head? 2 paychecks and you're done. how free are you? How free is anybody really in that situation? I think that one of the biggest lies that our system tells us is that this is the best of all possible systems because it's the freest of all possible systems. You know, there's significant deficits to the freedom that we experience in the United States and in the world due to the capitalist system. And I want to leave you with a quote from a man who agreed with me. Experience demonstrates that there may be a slavery of wages only a little galling and crushing in its effects than chattel slavery. And this slavery of wages must go down with the other. The man who has it in his power to say to another man, you must work the land for me for such wages as I choose to give, has a power of slavery over him as real, if not as complete, as he who compels toil under the lash. All that a man hath he will give for his life. And that was Frederick Douglass that said that. It might seem this way, but genuine freedom and democracy are not compatible with capitalism. So that is the presentation. Are there any like immediate questions? Because what I'm going to do is we're going to have some group discussion, but to kind of facilitate it and make it easier for everyone to talk, I'm going to put everyone into like a breakout group where there's a smaller number of people. I think I personally found that with 14 people, you can kind of get lost in the shuffle, and I want everyone to kind of discuss this with each other. So the first question that I have, and again, after I ask these, I'm just gonna send everyone into the cornfield, so to speak. I have them written on here. You don't have to forgive me. So the first question I want you guys to discuss in your breakout groups is, what would it mean for you personally and for people you know? How would their lives be different? What would they be able to? What would you be able to accomplish in other people if you were freed from the constraints of having to work a job to support yourself? So if you had the kind of freedom that Jeff Bezos has, where all of your material needs are met, you can focus on the things you want, how would that affect the lives of you and the people that you care about? And then the second thing I want you to discuss in that then is, what are some things that you can think of that would bring that closer to reality for other people? What are some ways that what are some things that could be done that could improve the self-actualization, the democratic like ability to improve oneself of like working class people? So we're going to go into the rooms and go. Okay, we got everyone back. Good. Everyone returned from their trip. So I kind of bounced around from room to room listening to what people were saying. And I heard a lot of really cool, insightful stuff. So if a couple people would maybe want to share the first part of the question, which was, how would it be different if you were freed from the need to like engage in this false choice every day? How would that affect you and like the lives of those you care about? And then, so there are a couple of people who have, I thought a few people had some good stuff to say about this. So I'm just opening it up for anyone that wants to kind of speak on that. I will literally call on people if someone doesn't engage. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kyle, can you tell me?
I think you got a couple hands up.
With their hands up.
Oh, their hands up? Then I'm being rude. Hold on. Where do I see hands? Oh, Eric and Nakota. Okay, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Nakota, you can go first.
Yeah, so for some background, I am a healthcare worker. I am a nursing student, like I work as a CNA. I had said that if I like had the freedom to like not have to work, I would probably still be a caregiver. It's something that I am very passionate about. However, my mental health, the compassion fatigue that healthcare workers face, like I would not have my mental health be deteriorated. Like I feel like I am pouring from an empty cup after every shift because we are so short-staffed. Like patient safety and patient health is not the priority. It is all profit in our healthcare system. Like it's just an unfortunate reality. If we were free from that like constraint, I think that it would make my mental health and just my general health better and the health of others better. And I said a couple things of like what could be what I would like for. Hold on. What was the second question? I forgot how it was phrased.
What are some material things that could be done to improve the freedom that working class people experience in the world, so to speak?
Okay. So I said specifically, like again, talking in healthcare, like focusing on my job, unionizing all healthcare. Unionizing all healthcare. I worked 60-hour work weeks, 5 12-hour shifts a week, and it is still not enough. We are so short-staffed, and it's because of burnout. It's because of prioritizing productivity over the health of caregivers and the health of patients. Our healthcare systems are disastrous. So, that's one of my biggest things, unionization.
Hell yeah. Fuck yeah. So Eric, I think you were next, and then was there anyone else who wanted to speak on this this stuff kind of in the group as a whole? All right, sir.
So my microphone should be working now. So I'll do my introduction first that I didn't get to do. So I'm Eric Reinertson. I'm from Metamora. But from the first question, so one of the things we talked about is actually very similar to what you were just talking about, Dakota. We talked about health and how being free to having free time, not being bound to like your work schedule. You would have time to actually go and address any possible health issues before they actually do get serious, because you either don't have the time and or money to go and address those things, and you just like sit there and you wait them out until they're literally so big of a problem that you have to go and get help. So like it would be a huge boon to like public health as a whole, because you have people going and getting preventative care on things before they're growing too big to where you're possibly getting hospitalized and stuff like that, because people have the time to go and like get these things covered. They're not just like going to work, not really having any money, not really having any time, and then just letting them get worse. And then for that second question, we talked about we kind of talked about political education, which is what we're doing today. But we were talking about how in a lot of our peer groups, everyone has everyone sort of recognizes a lot of the issues of today, like being overworked, not being paid enough, stuff like that. But as soon as you kind of bring up like socialism around them, everyone just like their jaw hits the floor and they're like, oh my God, we can't do that. But as soon as you start talking about, like what socialism actually is without saying the word, and you're just like, oh, well, I think the workers know how to run this business better than the people who own it and stuff like that. You might get like some people being like, oh yeah, I kind of get that. We have that manager who has no idea what he's talking about all the time. But like then when we do things, it runs a lot better and stuff like that. And like, they'll agree with you until you say that. So like we were talking about was like, it's going to be important to like not change the definitions of socialism or anything like that, but actually educate people, talk to people about what it actually means, not the version of it that we get taught growing up in high school and when we're younger.
Yeah, it's always been my experience that people will blow their stack at the mention of the word socialism, and then as you explain to them what it means, they slowly start to like not get as mad. and then they think you're tricking them. And it's like, no, that's just really what it is. So the next question I have is kind of tangential to that. And I was asked to put it in the chat because I think it might make it easier for everybody to understand it or to remember it. Like, what was he asking? So there's an essay from the quote. Capitalism has promoted the emergence of certain limited forms of freedom and democracy, but it imposes a low ceiling on their further realization. I want you guys to, in your groups, to unpack that quote. Kind of what do you think it means? What does that mean to you? And then if you have examples, provide some examples. So in addition, I'm going to let you guys know that we'll do 8 minutes on this one. So that'll bring us to we'll do 9 minutes. That'll bring us to 11:50. At 11:50, I'll hit the button where we all come back, and I'm going to throw us into a little bit smaller breakout rooms of time, just so there'll be 4 to 5 participants in each room, and we're going to go ahead and switch up. So everyone go to your rooms. Sorry, my voice is cracking. All right, welcome back, everyone. Again, is there a couple of people? Let me check. So they hands. If you like to discuss your group discuss, because again, I heard some really good stuff in the groups. I heard some people say some really good stuff. So, yeah, boom. We'll start with Emily.
Yeah, so one of the things that I feel like we all kind of jumped on and got to talk about was the way that capitalism has produced freedom in consumption choices. There's tons of examples. We talked about everything from healthcare to education to toothpaste. We have tons of consumption choices as far as, what we want to consume or what we want to use or where we want to go. But we're still prevented from kind of doing really anything meaningful with our lives because we don't have the choices and the deeper things where it actually matters.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think one of the things that capitalism has done is made us view ourselves as consumers rather than like anything else, and so we only know how to interact with other people in that view of consumer and person providing service. I honestly think that's why a lot of people are shitty to restaurant workers and retail workers, because they're powerless in every other aspect of their lives, like most of us are. But then you go into Walmart or you go into like a Red Lobster and you got some power over this other person. And I think we're just kind of made to be sociopaths by the system we live in, to where like if you have the opportunity to wield power over someone, you're going to wield it in a way that is inherently kind of reflects the way that you feel like you are being treated, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I can pick 50 kinds of toothpaste, but if I don't have $5,000, I can't get dentures. I have 40 different kinds of sneakers that I can pick, but if I don't have any money to pay for them, I'm going to be going shoeless or buying them at a thrift store. Like, these choices are illusory. Like, I think a lot of times, I think that is a very big deficit in capitalism in terms of its democracy, so to speak, is that it conflates the ability to make a bunch of different shitty choices with freedom, as opposed to the freedom that I have when I know that my health care is taken care of, my shelter is taken care of. That's an actual freedom, in my opinion, as opposed to the fact that I could get 8 kinds of Cocoa Puffs. Does anyone else want to speak to that particular topic? I think it's a really good one. Like I said, I think people... Okay, we'll go with Don. You haven't spoken, and then Nick after Don.
I just want to reiterate what I said. I made an analogy that, but at what point, like in the case of Peoria, is water supply is owned by a private company and it's not owned by, it's not a public works. And Nestle's buying up all these water wells, whatever, to bottle the water. And at what point does it become untenable to the public because they've been passive about it so long that, you know, something as basic as water can be owned and you know, life basic needs can be owned capitalistically, and you know, when does it become, you know, too much for people? It's that's all.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. My short answer to that is, I don't think people really care, or not that they don't care. It's normal here, right? Like, you don't really think about who owns the water company, or, you know, you don't really think about whether like 90% of the rest of the country has public water utility rather than a private one, that what we're experiencing here is not normal. We don't know how much profit they make every year. It's been estimated before, right? And that can be anywhere from a few $1 million up to $15 million that are leaving our city every year, just going to their profits. But like, you know, it's one thing for us to say this here and like get it and be like, oh my gosh, that is insanity. It should not be that way. But I think the majority of people around, or just the average person, I know they're damn tired of their water bill, that's for sure. But like making that connection between the private and public, it's like, it's fuzzy, right? And that was mentioned in the article. And I think it really comes down to that fuzziness, or that really being the source of the problem, being recognized by just, you know, most people.
All right, we'll go with Nick, and then we will go on to the next question.
Okay. Yeah, so something Emily had said that I really think it's something that I think sometimes leave out of this question in particular, about that question of the choices that we have under capitalism are limited by our ability to purchase and access them. And so like, that made me think back to this thing that when we talk about like reproductive rights, the argument that we see playing out between conservatives and liberals is this idea of pro-choice versus being anti-choice. And that choice model is really dependent upon, do you have the ability to pay for an abortion if you have the right to an abortion, versus, and do you have the ability to pay for reproductive health care, versus do you instead of focusing on fighting for people's right to choose to get right to have access to get an abortion, to have access to get reproductive health care, to have the right to not choose to get certain forms of reproductive health care, because we also see that the government has gone on to force marginalized communities to receive experimental reproductive health care as the only form of choice that they actually have to be able to access that health care. And so, you know, how much of a choice do you have when your only abortion clinic is 40 miles away and you don't have a car? And so that kind of is what that's what that reminded me of, is that we kind of create this limited access to reproductive health care based on your ability to pay under capitalism.
Justin, go ahead.
One example I'm not sure if was brought up, but we talked about in our group, was the illusion of choice when it comes to like professions, because we live in a world where in order to get most of those professions, you have to have a degree, you have to borrow that money typically from the government. You're paying the government to borrow that money to better your own life. And most people will spend the majority of the rest of their lives just trying to pay off that loan to try and get that job to get by. So it is inherently going to limit every possible decision you can make from that point forward. Because most people, the biggest purchase they'll ever make in their lives is a house. And when you're taking on a house worth of debt to get into that market in the first place, that is going to limit every decision you could make after that point. Simple as that. I'll stop there.
That's well said and accurate. And the other part is you're paying back that money at 6% interest. So it's not only are you screwed, but someone's making a profit off your misery. So we're going to move on to the third question, and I think this will probably be the last one because I promised that this would be over by 12:30, and I want to keep to my what I said because people have things to do, and I want to be respectful of that. So here's the third question: how is the government shaped to promote capitalist interests? And please give examples. Does it always act in the interests of capitalists? And if it doesn't, what makes it act in the interests of the working class? Or I guess if you believe that it never has, what can we do to make it act in the interests of the working class? So, we'll answer that. Oh, hold on. No. Disregard that. I'm closing all those. So once he's closed, I'll send everyone to their rooms again. Thank you for your patience with my technological, I don't know what the word would be for it. I'm not good with technology necessarily. Okay, there. Recreate these in the aggregate. We're going to do 3 rooms and everyone go. All right, so before we discuss this last question, just a little housekeeping thing. If any of you are interested in further information about this topic or further reading, I just sent a link to a Google document. I found a couple of longer form things by a guy named Vivek Chibber. Also a couple of lectures by a Marxist economist named Richard Wolff. One's a lecture, one's like a 10-minute thing. So just in case you wanted to know more about this particular topic or it interests you. Oh, hey, baby. This is my daughter. Sorry. You want to come up here and see what I'm doing? It's up to you. But so what we'll go ahead and does anyone, again, kind of doing how we've been doing, does anyone want to kind of speak on this? They have anything that they thought that was particularly, okay, go ahead, Noah.
So one thing that I kind of see, like when we're talking about like how capitalism and the government are kind of like connected together in a way, is like U.S. imperialism. So when we're looking at like when we go to foreign nations, like when we went to the Middle East, it wasn't to protect, human rights issues or anything like that. We went to the Middle East to protect oil. In 1954, when we overthrew the government of Guatemala, we didn't do that to protect the people of Guatemala. We were there to stop the redistribution of United Fruit Company's land. When we go do pretty much anything in Latin America, it is not to kind of support the people of Latin America. It's there to protect the multinational corporations that are stealing the resources of the people there. And I think it was Kwame Ture who said, like, the people of Latin America are not poor, or the Latin America is not poor. The people are poor. No, it was Michael Pinelli or whatever his name is. But the Latin America is not poor. The people are poor. The land is rich. And when we look at U.S. imperialism, that is the reason why we're in these countries. It's to protect only multinational corporations. So that's the main way that I see capitalism and the government being tied together.
All right, so I have an assistant now. So it looks like Emily and then Justin.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick kind of minor example. that comes to mind immediately, and that's just kind of like the general inaccessibility of the civil courts to just like working class people. The biggest example that I can think of is, you used to be able to sue a corporation or a company for negligence or a doctor for malpractice, or you used to be able to use the court system to, receive compensation when you were legitimately wronged by like an entity or an institution or a person, whatever. But capital didn't like that, so they partnered really cleverly with the state to put caps in a lot of places on payouts that you can receive from civil suits. So a jury can award you $5 million for McDonald's spilling hot coffee on you, but your state might have a cap that says you can only ever get 500,000 of that. It happens all over the place all the time. I think it's just a great example of how even the littlest things where we can get any type of justice, capital will come in and try to make it as hard as possible.
I think Justin was next, and then Justin was next.
I just wanted to expand on Noah's point. The imperialism of the United States really started in a big way with the Guano Islands Act in the 1850s. Basically, the U.S. said that any unclaimed island, the U.S. could just take it and say, oh, this has resources that we want. Hey, this is ours now. And that is literally the start of the global expansion of the U.S. Empire. And just a tidbit of history that most people don't remember because it's just not talked about in history books. The big thing that we talked about in our group is we essentially have legalized bribery in this country. A corporation can give an essentially unlimited amount of money to any politician. They can't just give it directly to the politician, but I can put it into this politician's fund for their campaign. And by the way, I want you to vote on my bill. And that bill happens to turn around and give me more money that inherently gives me more power to buy more politicians. So it is that cycle that we have been stuck in for at least my lifetime and for a lot longer. But not only is that just a legal thing, it's the fact that we've normalized it. They don't even talk about it in the media because it's just an assumed fact that obviously money buys politicians and those politicians feed that money back to those same donors. And it's just an accepted thing that that's how the world works. And you'll never break that cycle unless you break that system that's in place. And if money is speech, well, then you'll never effing get there. I'm sorry. That's it. That was my rant.
A couple of things that I wanted to mention too that I don't, our tax system. Our tax system that says that capital gains that you make off of investments and passive income are taxed at 15%, while your labor of even the most low-wage worker is taxed at 28 to 32%. The fact that I, as a homeowner, get a mortgage deduction that you, as a renter, don't for paying rent. I mean, there's several. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like it's just the whole assumption that you should be a homeowner and that like passive investment income is a better way of making money than the fact that you go out and you bust your ass for it. So it's like all of those things are just little assumptions built into our system that tilt in the favor of the capitalist class. And I think the examples that everyone else gave, especially that civil court system, man, try to sue someone without being able to afford an attorney because you don't get one for free in the civil sphere. So try suing your landlord for violating your rights as a tenant when you can't afford to get an attorney, and then Prairie State is backed up for 6 months. So yeah, there's lots of ways that are little subtle things that are not like the big thing. There's little things, and it's built to serve the interests of a group of people that isn't us. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Before I wrap it up, I just want to open the floor for anyone who wanted to say something, maybe a comment, maybe something they meant to say and then they forgot to say it. I want to thank everyone for really contributing to this. I was bouncing around from Zoom room to Zoom room, and there was a lot of really good conversations had, and I think a lot of self-educating, which I think is what we're going to need to do if we're going to win, is that we're going to have to like rely on ourselves to kind of, we know the material conditions of the society we live in. So let me check the chat. Okay. So yeah, if Blake, if you've got your hand raised, you go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention kind of a local example when we talked about like how capitalists shape government. The point it makes in the reading about the threat of disinvestment and capital mobility, which is something we've seen obviously in Peoria in our community with Caterpillar, and just talking about like all of the other major corporations that go to different cities based on promises of tax breaks and the like. And that was just an example that a little bit more, I guess, tangible in that it's in our community as opposed to, you know, extracting resources from other islands and the like.
Oh, yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's what I'm talking about. Like this is good. So yeah, I kind of promised that we would be done and wrapped up by 11:30. So or 12:30 rather. So I just want to thank you all for coming. Thank you all for putting up with the multiple text messages and stuff I sent out. Thanks for engaging with the material and engaging with each other, taking some time out of your day. We will be doing this every single week for 7 weeks. So the next one, I think, is going to be Doug. Emily, have a good day. Thank you for coming. I think it's going to be Doug. If not, it's going to be Blake, but we're going to be going over another topic. We'll send out more information, other texts and stuff like that. Then also, we're going to send out a survey to you guys asking how we did. Please fill it out. I know surveys are a drag, but like the feedback from members is really important because we want to make sure that we're doing a good job at making this engaging and interesting. So you'll be getting a survey. Everyone that attended, please fill it out. We can use that feedback. If there's anything else, I'm going to end the meeting here. And everybody have a great day. So, solidarity, comrades. Thank you for